What is going on, y'all? I am KM Best. I am joined by Lambie Series, and we are here, as always, to give you the rundown on the hottest topics in Marvel Snap in the shortest amount of time, starting with Loki, who I have found to still be extremely powerful, an extremely strong force in the metagame, but now that the metagame has adjusted to him, there are several decks that I actually like that can go over the top of him, which makes him a little more balanced. However, it does create this awkward situation where a lot of what's happening in the metagame is just people trying to go over the top of each other. I'm not sure how long term they want that to be what's happening, but hopefully some things will happen to change that up. I still think Loki's great. What are your impressions of the card, Lambie?
Yeah, okay, and what's up? Yes, I do think that Loki is still a very powerful force in the meta. In fact, I think it's still the best deck in the meta right now by far. It's just that the people are getting more used to playing against Loki. Like when it first launched, when we did the previous video, people are not used to the fact that there was so much random generation, so much stats collector going so tall. Now it's not that it changed, it's just that people kind of like know what's up, and they've also been tailoring their decks to sort of beat that recently. I don't think there's many strategies that have come up with like such with a lot of effectiveness against trying to beat Loki. But I guess one thing I want to say is that I have experimented with Cerebro Tree of all things. One of my least favorite archetypes ever, Cerebro. Cerebro
Yeah.
Tree is actually decent into
Mm-hmm.
Loki. I don't know if I want to say sadly or not, but like Shadow King is bonkers in that matchup. So that being said, on the flip side, Loki gamers like myself, which because I love playing the meta stuff. I've started playing Cosmo in my
Yeah.
Loki deck to combat some of these like more anti strategies. So I feel like the meta game is in a decent spot. Just that it's still a Loki domination kind of game. Just that people are getting more used to playing against it, and people are attacking better versus it. But I don't see it being dethroned anytime soon.
One of the weird things about the Loki meta is that it seems so odd when you're playing the deck because it doesn't even feel like the deck itself has been fully optimized. So that brings us to our second topic. Optimizing Loki has felt pretty difficult for me because there are the games where you Loki and then there are the games where you don't Loki. And it's a question of which one you want to optimize for. Right now, I'm optimized for the games where I Loki, which means I'm not running Angela. I still have Kitty Pride, but like I'm optimized for the games where I actually get to do the thing that the deck wants to do, and I am just trying to do that as much as I possibly can. And that means sometimes I take some losses in the games where I don't do that. And I don't know if that's the exact correct thing to do. Basically my game plan outside of Loki is just I have Jeff, I have Legion, I have Snowguard. It's an infinite amount of location scam. So if I can't win the game with a Loki, what I can do is probably find some way to location scam you out of the game. And that's sort of my backup plan right now because I don't necessarily see a ton of points coming out every game when I'm not Lokiing. I mean, like, there's still like a reasonable amount of points, but a lot of the Loki counter decks are going to go taller than me if I'm not Lokiing. If I am Lokiing, I don't really feel like there is a lot of counterplay. But then you get these like awkward games where you have to like really snap and retreat appropriately. Do you get the same impression, Land?
Right. So I've been doing something similar and also a bit different, which is I've been optimizing my deck. I mean, I've been trying a lot of things. I've been doing the
Yeah.
whole like mirror match stuff with Cable, Mirage, trying to steal their stuff. Trying to like maybe you play random generation cards that are not that great when they get them, like Agent 13, stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
think what I found most success with actually is using the Loki package as like a subset. Like I'm gonna talk about this like later in like one of the topics. But I found that like I've been winning a lot with Loki when I just play stats. So recently I found favor back in Angela again, playing her early on. But it's like Angela collector, the kind of like
Yeah.
early hard carry stuff, and then you just random generation and play stuff on the board, and then you play Loki, swap out a hand, play more stats. Like I'm back on that again. Earlier on I mentioned we added Cosmo just because it's a natural counter to a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
Loki counters. I feel like I agree that there hasn't been like the one Loki build. Like even after 72, 96 hours of like playing Loki or something, I don't think anyone has really come up with the build. Like it's the one archetype I feel that I've spent the most time with on Marvel Snap recently, and I have not found like my like best build yet. And I don't think anyone has really found the best build. I think everyone has preferred builds of Loki, but I don't think there's a clear-cut way to like win the mirror or like just be better than
Yeah.
everyone yet.
Yeah, I'm getting closer, I feel like. I feel like I'm getting closer and closer, and now it's just like, okay, there's a Cosmo tech slot that could be like Cosmo or Luke Cage. The 5-drop spot can be like Legion or Nick Fury or Devil Dinosaur, right? The Angela spot can be Angela or Jeff or something else. The Mirage
Sentinel.
spot can be Mirage or Cable or Sentinel or whatever, right? And so like the shell we have down, but the specific choices I don't think we do. And it's a very interesting spot.
I think optimizing this will also be. It's very interesting when it comes to optimization because to optimize something means he has to cater to the meta, right? But if
Yeah.
the meta is an undefined Loki deck, how do you cater to an undefined Loki deck? Because there is still so many things to be concerned, right? Let's say, okay, for example, let's say people start going the Dino route again. You will want your Shang-Chi's back, but then if no one's doing the Dino thing, your Shang-Chi's are dead. You don't want Shang-Chi's to get like stolen to Shang-Chi or collector or whatever. So like it's
Yeah.
really depending on what the meta ends up becoming in terms of like what's the best Loki and then how you build your deck after defining the best Loki. But the thing is, currently there isn't a best Loki,
Yeah,
so
there's
it's
nothing
very
to
difficult to figure out.
target. The
Yeah,
consensus is like it's a deck within they're all like within like 4 cards of each other, but and
yeah,
they're all like the same shape, but they're not the
yeah,
same deck.
yeah. It's not. It's slightly different. So I think we do have a bit more time to see how it develops.
Next up, the metagame outside of Loki to me has been I don't really exactly know how to describe it other than I would say a little bit distasteful, which is to say it's a lot of people just trying to unilaterally go as tall as possible while also playing a lot of cards that are not good for a Loki player to steal. So, like, generally, the shape of the decks we're talking about, things like, say, Hella Tribunal, Cerebro 3, various Patriot lists, the Yellow Jacket, Wasp, Jane, Hitmonkey deck. Like, these decks are all trying to create something that is more than the sum of the parts. I guess it would be fair to call them combo decks, right? They're all effectively just combo decks trying to go as tall as possible and beat out a Loki while doing it. And then, of course, there are various other decks that are like, oh, you're trying to combo? I got you. And like that would be like, say, something like High Evo Wave that's just like out here farming everything, trying to play multiple cards on turn 6, out here farming Cerebro, just things like that, right? And I guess my question to you, Lambie, would be, do you think that kind of metagame is something they want long term, or do you think this is a one off, an anomaly?
I do think it's possibly an anomaly because I don't think they would definitely want like just one best deck and everybody is just building to counter that one best deck, like I don't think that's the kind of meta that would be great. I think it would be better if there's like multiple best decks that all are decent into each other, like instead of like a one best deck meta, I think maybe a 3 or 4 best decks meta would be the best. And currently it's not exactly the case. It's clearly one best deck and everyone trying to revolve around that one best deck if you're not playing Loki. um, I just want to mention specifically, like with the whole like, um, give them a bad Loki like strategy. The one that I found to be weirdly working is the Shuri Sauron one. The one
Oh
whereby
yeah,
you give them unplayable Ebony Moss,
yeah,
and even
yeah.
if they get Sauron, they have to waste the turn to play the Sauron before they can play the Ebony Maw. That kind of thing. Like it slows them down quite a bit. So I feel like if I'm playing Loki and I know I'm playing against that deck, like I'll be very unincentivized to Loki outside of like making my collector bigger or like stealing a cheap red skull. So that direction has seen some success in my testing when it comes to like being an anti-Loki deck. But other than that, I think generic Shuri Kitty decks also have a chance versus Loki, because the thing about like Shuri Kitty decks is like if they steal the wrong part of your deck, right? Like if they steal
Yeah.
the kitties, they steal the Shuris. Those are like underdeveloped stats. You don't really want those like in your mid to late game because your opponent's Shuris and kitties would already be big, but the stuff that you steal are like completely unbuffed, right? Because those need time to be buffed. So I do think that the Shuri Kitty deck has a decent chance versus Loki as well.
One other thing to jump off though with Sauron Shuri is that it's a deck that can easily accommodate Enchantress. And I think that, if Loki people start going back to Dino because they want to go taller, right? that could be a really reasonable thing to do in that list as well. Next up, Alioth is coming out in only a little bit, and it is, of course, a 6 energy, 5 power card that has an on reveal that says destroy all cards your opponent played at this location this turn. And for the record, that includes face down cards. They will just be destroyed, never having been revealed at all, completely eaten up in time, almost as if they never existed in the first place. Now, the main place people are forecasting this card to go is in Galactus, because with Galactus, of course, if you pull off the Galactus, Alioth just means you immediately win the game. No counterplay, game's over, done. We're done here. So, where do you foresee Alioth taking a spot in the metagame, and do you think this Alioth Galactus thing is unilateral enough that people should be worried about it?
Honestly, this whole Alioth Galactus thing, to me, this was basically like people thinking Alioth Galactus is like people saying that Galactus into pre-nerf Spider-Man is just like GG, that kind of thing. I mean, it's about the same. It's like about the same. But like the problem is, I feel like being able to pull off the Galactus is a lot harder than it used to be. Like I feel like even if you can pull off the Galactus, if you can actually pull off the Galactus, people will just retreat, right? Because like they know that the Alioth is coming. Like last time it was the Prof was coming, now it's the Alioth is coming. So like I don't think you get much cube equity from this strategy. I do think it's something worth trying. But the thing is, the consistency of pulling off Galactus has not changed. It's just that they added an Alioth to like end the game, but the actual Galactus like pull off has not changed at all, and didn't change. So there will definitely be a spike in popularity of the deck just because of the hype. But I think Alioth is more home in shells where, like I mentioned previously in other videos as well, which is the whole tempo shell. You place, it's like, you look at it like pre-nerf Aero kind of thing. You just play like stats, and then you're winning. Then which lane you need to play Alioth? The lane that's losing, right? Then you just play there, everything blows up, and you win. So I think Alioth is more at home in shells that can pump out a lot of initiative.
Moving on to a deck that a lot of people say beats Loki, and I think both of us agree that that is Cope. Evo Wave is good right now. I do think it's a good deck right now, but it's not.
I need to cut in right now and say that that's absolute bullshit. It does not beat Loki at all. All right, sorry. Continue. I've never
that's
been
what
so
Cope needs. God, we were on the same page. But like,
all right, let's go.
The thing about this deck is people are like, oh yeah, it beats Loki because you give them bad Evo cards. It's like, no, it doesn't. I'll take a 5 energy Hulk. Like the thing about Loki is a 1 energy discount is stronger than basically every high Evo buff. Like if high Evo gave everything in the deck -1 energy, the reason these cards are costed, like this is something that's so fundamental that I think people don't think about enough. These cards are costed as vanilla, right? You're like, oh, it's a 3/4. That's vanilla. But suddenly when it's a 2/4, it's very above curve, right? Like the whole point is that it's a reasonable body for a thing that it currently costs. And then suddenly you're dropping it by 1, which makes it a very unreasonable body. Abomination is a 4/9, just unconditionally. Hulk is a 5/12, just unconditionally. Cyclops is a 2/4, just unconditionally, right? Like, -1 energy on vanilla cards is quite strong. And outside of the idea that we kind of just don't think this beats Loki, I feel like it's like okay into Loki. Like it's not like you're never winning the matchup. It's like, okay, you can win it, sure. But I don't think it's like favored or anything like that. But what I do think this deck does well is police basically everyone else. Like all the people that are trying to beat Loki, Evo Wave shows up and is like, huh, fucking moron. Why did you think you could get away with this? And then has like a 45% matchup into Loki or something. And it's like, all right, that's like a reasonable matchup profile, all right?
Yeah, like so this Evo Wave deck, firstly, it does beat like the Cerebro stuff because now they are cutting Luke Cage, right? Because like they want
have
the
to. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want the Loki deck to steal the Luke Cage. And once you cut Luke Cage, you die to high Evo. So like okay, so this high Evo deck, wave deck, I can see why people like this deck. I've played against this a lot in the last 24 hours, by the way. Like a lot of people love this deck.
It's a lot of people think it's good.
It's just a wave deck. Like it's just a wave deck. And like I feel if you've known how to beat wave decks, beating this deck is the same thing. Like when I see this deck as a Loki deck, like when I play Loki and I see this deck, right? To me, my first thing in my mind is like this is free food. Because like they are very fair deck because what they do is that they want to just place things, they will float energy, and on turn 5, if they have wave, they will wave. Like I've never seen anyone that had wave on 5 with this deck and did not wave. It's like they just wave.
It's
And like
true.
and because you know it's coming, you just like you said, you play Loki on 4, you take a 5 energy Hulk and play it on the turn
Yeah.
they play wave, and like
Yeah. It's like,
that's it,
okay.
right? That's it.
Yeah, it's like, thanks for the
So
Hulk. Now my next turn is Chavez. I don't know how you win this game,
yeah.
right? Like,
So
it requires a
I
lot
think
for
this
them to win.
this deck is okay, but if I want to play a wave deck right now, I would play the Silk wave deck. It's not like it's
Interesting.
like a lot better, but it's
Mm.
easier stats and there's a bit more like mobility and like height to it. Like you can do like Craven scaling, Angela scaling into a wave, and Silk is just big early on and stuff like that. So I feel like it's not like the Silk wave deck is like definitely better than the Evo wave deck, but like versus like Loki specifically, I think it's just slightly better.
Interesting, because I actually think the Evo Wave deck's a little bit better versus Loki, specifically because of the inclusion of Storm, right? You are able to just like scam one lane, and you can almost always, maybe not always, because it'll depend on what they got off the Loki, but you can push the game towards a potential Hulk 50-50 a lot of the time. And I feel like that's better than most of what happens with the Move Wave deck, which is mostly just you lose. Like, at least the Evo deck, I feel like, can push the game towards a 50-50 Hulk. Where, like, worst case scenario, there's a coin flip there. With the move deck, I just feel like they get outpowered a lot more easily.
Yeah, I think you're not exactly wrong there. It's more like I feel the move wave deck. If you don't get specifically Loki on 3, for example, the move wave deck actually like puts out more stats on the board in the early game, and I actually value that very highly because like the thing is, if you know that they're gonna wave you right versus the Evo deck, like I mentioned earlier, you just Loki on 4, take the Hulk,
Yeah.
and Hulk versus wave on turn
Yep.
5, one big swing, too much of a big swing, and they don't play Shang. Oh, and they don't play Shang, so.
No. And it's just like, okay, well, we're done here. But they can push towards 50-50s. And
They can.
I do find that like genuinely valuable. Because there is like Hulk is just, Hulk strongest there is. He's the biggest guy around that anyone
True.
can play, and that matters. Next up, a deck introduced by one of the designers of Marvel Snap, Glenn Jones, actually reminiscent of a deck from the beta. This is, I guess I'd call it New Age Bounce. It's bounceless bounce. The idea here is you are, of course, a Bishop, Angela, Kitty, Hitmonkey, Mysterio deck, but instead of doing bounce stuff with that, what you're doing is playing Wasp, Yellow Jacket, and then Thor's Mjolnir, hopefully gotten for you off of a Jane Foster. And the idea is just, okay, if they Loki me, like 75% of my cards are crap. And the only one that is actually good for them is like a Hitmonkey. And then the rest of the time, I will be able to use my cards better than my opponent. My opponent Loki will be able to use my cards, and you can put like 30 power in a lane, right? You can get like, you this is very much a target 2 lanes deck, but it is a deck that I have lost to as Loki. They aren't like, they aren't blowouts. Like my matchups against this deck strike me as incredibly close. They're very much just like, all right, I need to guess where the power is going, and if I guess correctly, I'm going to win, and if I guess incorrectly, I'm going to lose. They feel very close, but I mean, at least something is close,
Okay, so this deck, I've actually played versions of this in the past as well. I've seen it around before. So basically, like you said, it's just like lots of cheap stats, Angela Bishop hard carry, and then you can finish off with like the Thor Jane stuff and the monkey because you have a lot of zero cost stuff as well, right? So this deck versus Loki is interesting because the way you play Loki versus this deck. Okay, firstly, I don't think this deck is like super fantastic. It's just that I think it's a new spin on things. A spin on like, and like you said, an existing archetype like Bounce. How you play Loki against this deck is you have to Loki with the intention of buffing Collector, because most of the time if you Loki early with this deck, you lose because you get 0 energy stuff, you get Thors which are too slow, you get Janes which draw nothing. So I feel like this deck, like once you know it's this deck, your Loki is just meant to buff Collector, and which is also why I feel like some of the potential future best Loki decks will have backup plan, or I mean a
Yeah.
dino basically. Like we are reaching that dino territory.
No,
very
I mean,
soon.
like, this is a matchup that punishes you for being linear Loki, right? Like, this
Yes,
is
correct.
that's what it's built to do.
Correct.
And so, but like, here's the thing. I don't think it punishes you enough. Like
Yeah.
I don't like I said,
I think
I play
once you know what
hyper
this is.
linear. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
once you see it, you're like, I'm playing hyper linear Loki, and it's very much like this is at worst coin flipping, is what it feels like.
Mhm.
Even with them built very specifically to deal with hyper linear Loki, it still kind of feels like it's coin flipping. Next up, Ravonna Renslayer, 3 cost, 3 power. All of your cards with 1 power or less cost 1 less. And the reason we want to talk about this now is there's been like a resurgence in Patriot, there's been a resurgence in Cerebro a little bit, and both of those are decks that I feel like might actually benefit from this card a little bit. And of course, there's Cerebro Mystique, but really Iron Man Mystique as a powerful use of this card. Some interesting stuff that this card lets you do asymmetrically as well. And with Loki in the metagame, doing things asymmetrically is about as powerful as you can get. That said, of course, if you play Ravonna intending to get your little discounts, you are going to also give the Loki player the same discounts, not just because of the Ravonna, but because of the words on Loki. But I do think that the kind of decks this card enables are the kind of decks that, in my mind, have the same shape as a deck that would beat Loki, which is to say, like, if you're doing something with this, you're doing something weird and finicky that like the parts are less than the sum of the whole, right? Like you're doing more with what you have than your opponent will be able to do when you're playing a Ravonna deck. So my interest is a little bit piqued. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's the kind of card that goes in the decks that are good into Loki.
So with this card, I always say that like because of all the 4 cards that are coming out this month, like the whole Loki, Alioth, Mobius, and Ravonna. To me, Ravonna is like the least potent one. I feel like after looking at everything, because like I was initially on this Ravonna hype train because I love Iron Man, so 4 energy Iron Man always feels really good. But like Ravonna is like to me like a bit like a Sauron, which is like if you're spending turn 3 to play a 3 energy, 3 power card, the payoff better be good. If not, like what's the point of wasting turn 3, right? So I guess natural fits, like we mentioned, Iron Man, Mystique stuff. I don't know if we ever get to see some Dark Hawk thing coming along with this, but like honestly, this card I feel is quite overshadowed. I will still get the card to cook with it, but like I do think it's quite overshadowed by like what we have now and what will come. But I do think if you are someone that has some creative juices in your head and you really want to cook with this, go ahead. But like I'm not optimistic, but I will try to do something with it. I will try.
We need like a translator's note under there, which like when Lambie says go ahead, it needs to say don't play this. Like, just flash.
I do realize that usually ends up being the case because when I say go ahead, it's because I'm not actively promoting.
Yeah, it's because you're not gonna do it. Like, it's you can do it, viewer, you idiot. But I'm not doing it.
Yeah, it's like when I say go ahead and play Cerebro if you want to, I realize I'll never play Cerebro. Okay, that makes sense. Good spot.
Finally, I think part of why I originally wanted to do this series with you, Lambie, was so we could really get into some granular details here. A lot of what we've talked about has been top level. I want to really dive down to like one specific choice here in the Loki deck. The way I see it, there are 3 viable 5-cost cards you could be playing in there, and they are Legion, Nick Fury, and Devil Dinosaur. You have a preference for Devil Dinosaur, and I totally get it because it's like the natural fit in the deck, and there are less mirrors now, and you can just be like, look, I'm just gonna play it if the mirrors anyway. Or like, look, if they get my Dino, look, I mean, I'll just get their Loki. Like, sure, whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. The mirrors are such a complete shit show that it's just like, sure, why not? I don't really mind. So, what do you think about that slot? Can you sell me on Dino? I mean, I'll be streaming later today. Can you sell me on the card?
Okay, so the funny thing is, normally I can be very clear about why I think something is good. But like with this whole Dino thing, okay, so let me just put it into context first. So I treat Dino in this deck like Dino in Thanos, which is like it's very natural fit. It's just because
it just
big
goes
hand.
there.
big card, and like it works. It's huge, right? So the thing is with Dino, it's also like the only shankable thing in your deck, and it's so huge if it gets shanked, right? So, but the thing is, like, based on my personal experience, I don't want to just call it player diff, but like my highest win rate deck with Loki is a Dino Moon Girl Loki deck. And like it could be mainly because I know that if I'm playing Dino, I'm accepting it gets shanked. So on turn 6, I know that if it gets shanked, I need to try and win somewhere else. Maybe this is my mindset. That's why I can win with this deck. But like if it actually doesn't get shanked, just doing the most simple basic Marvel Snap thing of Dino Moon Girl into Dino wins a lot of games. Like I've won so many games by doing absolutely nothing except Moon Girl Dino. And something about just pure raw stats is just very game winning. So I'm not trying to say that yes, this is for sure the best build, but the thing about Dino is that like in this deck, if it doesn't get shanked right, it's very rare it's less than 15. It's
Yeah,
huge. Because like the
it's
stuff that you
enormous.
play on the board gets you more stuff back in hand, right? Like Coulson, Snowguard, Mirage, Sentinel. Like every stat you add to the board doesn't actually reduce the power of the Dino. So it's actually net gaining of stats like every turn regardless. Because yeah, it's like more stats on board equals also the Dino doesn't get smaller. So I think it's a very natural fit. The Loki collector portion of it obviously becomes a bit out of the window if you're going for the Dino game plan. But I guess that's fine because Dino's big, and if you don't get shanked, Dino wins, right? So I want to explore this a little bit more, but I am relatively sure that if I play more Loki in the future, it would be exploring Dino builds.
Okay, so you're willing to give up Legion to get him in there?
I'm playing both.
Oh my
I'm playing
god.
both. It's just options, yes. Because I feel like if you
Oh
don't draw
no.
Angela Collector and you don't draw your Quinjet, like you don't get to the 5 anyway. Like so to me, if I don't get to the 5 anyway, why not just play the good cards in the early game? And if I do get to the 5, I have options. So like I just play both, and so far it's working fine.
Okay. Okay. I was gonna say because I feel like I'm not even sure that you're supposed to play any at this point. But if you're gonna play one, that was the
Might as well play
context here. Where
both.
you're just like, no, I'm playing both. I'm not giving up Legion. I
Yeah,
refuse. I can't give
yeah.
up Legion.
I think this is a good point to talk about my general deck building philosophy, which is also I play ever since the Snowguard change, I find myself playing both Snowguard and Legion in a
Yeah.
lot of my decks. Like it's not like a either or thing, because people always say that like Snowguard is a cheaper Legion. It's not the case. It's
No,
different. It's a
she's
very
worse.
different card.
First,
Yes.
she's just worse. Like there's no surprise
Yeah.
value with her.
Yeah, Snowguard is for sure worse, but like there are a lot of cute things you can do with Snowguard and Legion together, like the whole turn off Death's Domain, play stuff there, then you play Legion on Death's Domain, that kind of thing. Like, I mean, this is not so much about like Dino specifically, but like Legion in Loki deck is like the same as Legion in any deck. Like, I think it's such a good 5 cost card to play that even if you don't like Dino, you should really consider playing Legion and Loki.
Yeah, it's quite powerful. It's currently the one that I've opted for whatever that's
Yeah.
worth, right? And like I told you, my backup plan when I don't Loki people is basically just well look, I've got Snowguard, I've got Legion. There are some locations that I can just instantly win the game on because those cards are in my deck. And they have reasonable stat lines too, for whatever reason. Like, I don't know why they felt the need to do that, but I
Yep.
also get to have reasonable stats on my complete scam plan. So sure, why would I not do that? So that's where I'm at right now. I'm interested in your like Moon Girl collector thing. That seems, with all due respect, that seems degenerate as hell. But
Yeah.
like, I'm interested to see how it goes. All right,
Yeah.
that's our show. Thank you so much. You can find more of us on my channel, on Lambie's channel, and we're going to get back to those Spotify uploads so you can find us on Spotify as well. Thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure. I have been Cam Best for Lambie Series. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye bye.